Hi everyone, my name is Alan Mond, and today I'm just gonna go through a quick presentation on how to get started on car hacking. And it's actually a great segue to Aditya's presentation because some of the things that he talked about, like radio hacking with Bluetooth, will come in really handy. Um, And if you have any questions, yeah, definitely interrupt and ask your questions. I'll try to keep track of what's going on the chat. So here are the things that we're going to talk about: how to get started. So what are some of the areas that you can look into to hack a car? The vehicle networking basics that are required to hack a car. So some of the very basic things that you need to know about the vehicle's internal network. A very short demo showing what that looks like, and then how to build your own testing book for very cheap. Objective of this talk is to create awareness, obviously, and for a more informed audience. So a little bit of background: I'm originally from Argentina. And I worked at Bosch for a number of years on the Pontiac Solstice, doing engine calibration and a lot of work internally on how the vehicle communicates between the different modules. I then started a small equipment sharing company called MuniRent. Then launched in 2016 CarLoop, which is a car hacking tool, and you'll see it pop up here. And now I recently started at Voyage, doing hardware integration and controls for a self-driving taxi service. So and below are all sort of my interests. So if anyone is interested in any of that stuff, definitely hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter is on there as well. Oh yeah, since I have a captive audience right now, I want to just download some information that I had about the Pontiac Solstice that I can't just give this information to anyone. So since you're here, I'll just tell you. The way to identify whether a Pontiac Solstice, which is this car, is a turbo versus a regular naturally aspirated car is with this. So you can see that the grill actually has minor difference. Anyways, that was kind of a sidestep for the talk. But what are some of the different attack surfaces on cars? When you come across a car, let's see, something in the chat. When you come across a car, there are some things that you might notice as you start hacking with cars, and there's a number of attack surfaces. So the first one that a lot of people sort of disregard is the tire pressure monitoring sensor. In every car nowadays, you have to have a sensor that connects to the car, and it's located in each one of the 4 tires. And that sensor measures pressure. The way that communicates to the body control module is via a radio signal. So it's a low frequency radio signal that sends the data back to the module. So you can actually intercept that signal, and that would be one attack surface. Another attack surface is Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. So essentially, nowadays there's a lot of cars that have onboard Wi-Fi. So they have a 3G modem or a 4G modem and a Wi-Fi hotspot in the car. And a lot of times that hotspot is open, completely unsecured. So you can actually, if you're driving next to someone on the highway, you can actually tailgate them and log into that network. and that network is actually connected through the main infotainment system, which is those screens in the center of the car. So the third one is the OBD2 port, which is typically underneath the steering wheel. Sometimes it's to the left of the steering wheel, sometimes it's to the right. And this is the main entry point access, but this is already inside the car. And then the fourth one is the infotainment system itself. And USB, there's a number of ways you can actually get root access to the infotainment system. And after this talk, I can point you in the direction of where these resources are. So how to get started? The first thing that I would recommend anyone, if you haven't already, is to pick up this book. It's called The Car Hacker's Handbook. It was written by Craig Smith, and it's first published in 2016. There aren't a lot of there isn't a lot of literature out there, surprisingly, about car hacking, and this is, I think, one of the most comprehensive ones. It's actually free to download. So if you go to this link, you can download a zip file and a PDF of the entire book. So one of the nice things about this book is it really does cover a lot of the nitty-gritty of hardware hacking. So for example, when you actually get an engine or a transmission control module or any module in the car, you can actually open it up, and it goes in pretty deep detail on how to download firmware and do a lot of things that Aditya was talking about in the last presentation. There's an entire chapter dedicated to socket CAN and CAN utils, and since I'll show some of this, it'll be very, very good if you like this to kind of follow up and read that chapter, because it's very, very good. And it also talks about how to reverse engineer an ECU, which is really interesting. So in order to get started in car hacking, the easiest way is to have access to the DLC. It's data link connector, but more colloquially known as the OBD2 port. The OBD2 port is called like that because of regulation from the California Air Resources Board to have a standard way to read diagnostic fault codes that would affect the environment. So any fuel related, and then it became this sort of standard for reading fault codes in an engine. The interesting thing is, since 2008, a lot of these, since 2008, OBD2 was mandated to be on CAN, the CAN protocol, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And this is very important because the rest of the car is also on the same CAN network. So what's exciting about being able to access the OBD2 port is that once you can read data from the OBD2 port, you can write data very easily and control the car. It's completely unencrypted. So you'll need a CAN hardware tool. This comes in many, many shapes. You can find one that goes from the OBD2 port to RS-232 connector. Really what you're looking for is a microcontroller that has a CAN controller on it and a CAN transceiver. And some of these tools are pretty affordable, but it does require you to buy another cable to go from the OBD2 port to the tool, from the tool to your computer. If you don't have RS-232, it's kind of a pain. So, and you also need a Linux machine. I guess before I keep going, my background is not in security. Actually, my background is all in automotive. So definitely ask any questions with that in mind, and take whatever you can from this and apply it to do any type of penetration testing on cars. Um, you can also, there are other options, like this is why we came up with CarLoop, which is basically a cable-less device. So you just connect it straight to the OBD2 port, and you can either use a micro USB or Wi-Fi to read, and it supports the same socket CAN, and it's completely open source as well. A lot of times I get asked the question, but what about these $10 OBD2 dongles on Amazon? Why can't I use those to hack my car? Actually, you could. They're just, in my case, it just takes a lot of work to use the tools, because they have an integrated circuit called the ELM 327 that actually takes the raw CAN messages and then converts them into physical values or into actual values from the engine. So inside this ELM 327, there's this data dictionary that whenever it sees a CAN message, it actually sends out an actual signal. So you're not really getting the raw CAN messages, and you're just looking at the OBD2 mandated messages rather than being able to see the entire range of CAN messages that are available. So that's why the OBD2 dongles on Amazon are just not a good tool to write either. So you can only read, you can't really send CAN messages back into the vehicle. From what I've seen, the most comprehensive list of hardware devices, car hacking tools, both software and hardware, that are open source are on this awesome vehicle security list on this link. And if you go there, and the README is just an amazing plethora of information. And then some friendly forums that I like to hang out at. OpenGarages.org is great. They always have really sort of no judgment zone comments, and same with community.carl.io. And recently there's been a new one called Slack. It's basically comma.ai, which is a self-driving car company that has open sourced a bunch of stuff. And they also have bounties to, if you can basically create a port to do a self-driving car. So it's a really interesting interesting place to ask questions about car hacking in general as well. Okay, so in order to command a vehicle, or to figure out what are some of the easy ways to modify a vehicle, you need to have some idea of networking basics, the vehicle networking basics. Every vehicle that's rolling on, at least in the US and a lot of Europe, Asia, and South America, internally there's a network called the CAN bus, and it connects all the modules through these two wires, basically two physical wires that connect the dashboard to the engine, to the body control module, the airbag control module, the transmission, the infotainment system. Everything is connected on a CAN bus. CAN stands for Controller Area Network. It's two wires. It's CAN high and CAN low. There's typically more than one CAN bus on vehicles. For example, on Teslas, they have the Tesla Model S has 6 different CAN buses for different parts of the vehicle. So why focus on CAN? It's mandated since 2008, and so a lot of manufacturers use it. So if you have to work on one protocol, CAN is the protocol moving forward that's going to be the most open. And right now, it's not encrypted at all. So if you connect any device to a car, you'll start seeing data. So this is what it looks like on an oscilloscope. And when you convert this to actual data, this is what you're seeing. So basically, the signals go from high to low. So from 2.5 is the resting voltage, and then whenever there's a packet that's being sent, the information is transmitted by modulating this signal. So I'll explain the most important part of a CAN message is the ID and the data. So the ID is basically what that CAN message, what kind of information that CAN message is containing, and the data is the payload, basically. This is what it looks like on your laptop when you're running CAN utils, which is one of the utilities from SocketCAN. So I'll give you a very short demo of what that looks like. So the first thing you want to do is you want to install CAN utils, and this is how you do it on Ubuntu. In the case of if you're using car loop, you can provision a car loop with CAN utils and flash over the air on your car loop, and you can actually go to this this address because on this URL it'll actually go through what are some of the things you have to do to get this data through SocketCAN. And then you just type in CAN sniffer -c CAN 0, and then you start seeing a bunch of data. And I'll show you what that looks like. So this is just a GIF. But if we stop that, this is what the data coming from CAN looks like. So this is the ID, and the rest are so there's basically 8 bytes of data, and each byte pair contains different types of information. This is coming from the ABS module of a Ford Fusion, and so there's only a few messages. But if you do this on an entire car, it'll be 3,000 messages just scrolling through. So the way you identify what this is you look at the ID, and then you see what kind of what changes. For example, if you unlock the doors, which one of these digits or which one of these byte pairs are changing, and that's how you can actually decode what each ID is. There's no documentation out there, and manufacturers don't really want you seeing what this is, but it's fairly straightforward. Once you have this in front of you and you start clicking different buttons on the car, you actually see this changing, and the colors change as well with this tool, with CAN sniffer, which is open source and it's native for Linux. So if you don't feel like hacking on your own car, you can actually build a test bench. And for less than $100, you can actually have a running CAN bus with, for example, an engine control module, a power supply, and any of the hardware CAN devices that I mentioned above. If you add more modules, you can get more interesting data. This is, for example, a test bench for a Ford Fusion. So there's a dashboard, the Sync 3 module, which is really interesting to hack on, the controls for AC, the radio, and you see the fuse box there, which actually has some internal relays. And all that is sending CAN messages. So if you disconnect one, you can actually see what are the CAN messages that are coming from that module. So this is really, really interesting exercise. I'm going to check if there are any questions so far.
Yeah, Alan, we can go a little long here if we need to.
Okay.
Yeah, so no worries.
Okay, so that was it actually.
Yeah, no, I know, but there's some good questions in here. So we had someone just ask if you can you get this from your local junkyard? Those parts that you were just talking about.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, car-part.com, which is what I was showing earlier. Let me go back to that. Yeah, so car-part.com is actually even better than your junkyard because it's all of the junkyards across the US, all on this website. So people that have junkyards just post cars that they have, and it automatically populates the parts that will have on that car. So you actually go there, you order it, and it arrives. Typically, everyone ships USPS priority, and that way you don't have to go do it yourself.
Awesome. Let's see. We had someone ask, how do you access proprietary PIDs?
Yeah. So PIDs, which are parameter IDs for OBD2, those are harder to decode because those are use a response, like a query and response structure. Those are specific to OBD2, so they don't just stream. The data doesn't just stream. You actually have to send a specific PID to get it back. And the way I've seen most people do that is by using a scan tool. You can buy a scan tool for that specific brand and use a Y splitter. Let me show you what that looks like. Y splitter. I mean, this is. I'm not trying to. This is the easiest way to show what a Y splitter looks like. Yeah. So basically, you connect on one side a device that reads data, and then on the other side you connect a scan tool, so you can actually send a request, like what is the I don't know what's the RPM, and then you'll get it back, and you'll see what is the request sent and how to capture the message back as well. Does that make sense?
I think so. Let's see. Can you please explain about the replay attacks on car key fobs using HackRF types of devices?
Yeah, I haven't played a lot with that, so I really can't comment. But I have no idea.
What's the difference between kind of the tool set that you described in a couple of the first earlier slides and the stuff that's like on Illmatics, the Charlie Miller kind of tools he dropped when he did the Jeep research and the hacking manuals there?
Yeah, so there's a lot more sort of setup with the tools that they use, and that's actually a paper that I forgot to include, but it's a really good read because it goes through a lot of the process of decoding each of the CAN messages, and it actually has some IDs already on there that you can look at if you have the same brand of car. Each manufacturer has their own specific set of IDs that they use to describe different things in the car. So Ford uses one type of ID, or ID, let's say it's called a DBC file, so it's sort of a data dictionary. But in terms of the tools, they're all very basic, and they're all the same. It's really just in terms of hardware, it's just a microcontroller with a CAN bus on it and a CAN transceiver. And as long as you have that very simple sort of tool chain, you can start hacking.
Cool. Also, just wanted a shameless plug out there. So, Bugcrowd is running the car hacker CTF this year at the Car Hacking Village at DEF CON. The CTF grand prize is actually a 2017 truck. So if you guys are coming to DEF CON, come compete in the CTF, and you can have a chance to drive away with a new vehicle.
Yeah, with the URL for that is what, Car Hacking Village?
I think it's yeah, I don't know. You can Google it, Car Hacking Village CTF or something like that. But
yeah, let me make sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm also as a part of that shameless plug. I'm really proud of the CTF site that we built with CTFD. The design is awesome. Yeah, it's at carhackingvillage.com. That's all the information for the DEF CON Car Hacking Village in its entirety. Bugcrowd will have a table there, and we'll be handing out tons of stickers. And Alan, are you gonna be in Vegas in a couple weeks, or were you able to?
Yeah, I'm trying to make it work. I think it's I've been there last year, and it's super fun, and there's a lot of people that are very, very knowledgeable. So if you go to the car hacking village, you just always learn something new. It's really, really valuable.
Awesome.
Oh, let
Well,
me put the
this-
link. Actually, there's a question about the link. Let me grab it.
Oh, to the car hacking handbook? Yeah. Cool. Well, this was super helpful. We'll try to get you back again sometime to do some more chats. People really, really enjoyed this talk.
Cool. Thank you very much for having me.